Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pastor Jardula is here and with a very special co-host today, and I do mean special. You know I love Kim Iversen, so we got her on the show. Kim Iversen's here, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. Thanks for having me. So fun.
I was just saying, some people never return my calls, but Kim always returns my calls. I don't know if it's because we were Tulsi people back in the day or we're just cool people and, we have that kind of relationship, but whatever it is, I do appreciate you coming on the show and showing up to rallies that we have. You're always supporting us, Kim, and I can't thank you enough.
I even return your butt dial calls when you accidentally call me.
I did it like twice in one day. Like, oh, it was another. The second time you were like, was it a butt dial? I'm like, yes, it was. But while I got you on the phone, you want to come on and talk about Tulsi with me on Friday?
Sure. Why not?
Well, first off, let me just take my hat off to you for also the great work you've been doing on The Hill. If there's anything you want to plug about The Hill at any time, please do so. We like to plug our other shows, including my morning show that I've been doing in this new studio right here. We've been streaming on Slow News Day for free on their Rockfin, on the Convo Couch is premium in the mornings. It's an awesome show, Kim. And if you're ever in town in Vegas, please stop into the studio. But if you want to just join us via satellite on the interwebs, you're more than welcome to come on the morning show.
Look, if I have a choice, I'm coming to Vegas.
That's what I'm talking about.
I should be there now. Why am I not? It's my birthday weekend. I should be there.
Wait, when's your birthday?
Monday. My birthday's Monday. So I should be there now, partying it up in Vegas, baby.
Just to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, Steve, my other partner in the morning, he's an Aries. Kim is an Aries, and I am an Aries.
And we're talking about Tulsi, and she's an Aries.
It's Aries galore. It's a lot of Aries and stuff. That's right. Her birthday thing, I think, is on the 7th or something, right?
Hers is closer to mine. 7th.
Hers is the 12th or the 13th.
Something like that, right?
It's really close to mine. Yeah, it is for sure and stuff. Because I think on the 13th, the day after her birthday, but before my birthday, one of the first things I did with Tulsi Gabbard, and we can kind of lead this right into the section, because I wanted to have an adult conversation about Tulsi Gabbard. For all those Tulsi people out there that we met, which to me is still one of the greatest things about their campaign. I'm still friends with the majority of those people. However, some of those people, Kim, they don't like us anymore, and they think we were unfair with our criticisms about Tulsi.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I wanted to have you on for an adult conversation so we can talk about it, and still extending that invitation for people like Shauna Burley, Krista Schillis, Mike Ungerleiner, Eileen, all you guys. If you want to come on the show, there's many more. Killer Cam, who recently blocked me, and I'm upset that he did, but I really do apologize to you, Cam, because I never want to break the love I had with a lot of the Tulsi people that I met. I think it's one of the greatest things about her campaign is the family we created, because the Bernie people, Kim, the people from 2016, they won't even talk to me. The majority of them hate me. They don't like Fee. They think we sold out, and they call us right-wingers and Nazi sympathizers and the whole 9 yards.
I think it's just really important for people to divorce themselves emotionally from every single politician that is out there. You just have to divorce yourself because every politician will disappoint you at some point. That's the nature of the game, unfortunately. And, I think that there's just too much emotional investment in kind of deitizing these people. And they're just regular people. And we have to remember that. And they're going to make mistakes. And we don't have to agree with everything. But there could also come a point where we say, okay, you've now reached a threshold for me that I no longer am in that, for me, I always say I've got to agree with the politician about 85% of the time in order for me to say, okay, I think this is somebody I could support. But, once that it might lower, right? And it might get to 80% or 75% or 70%. Then you might say, well, I'm not 100% certain if I can back this person anymore as a leader for the things that I envision for the best for society, because, I just don't agree with them enough.
Yeah.
And, when it comes to Tulsi and Bernie, people definitely, and Trump, we see this with the Trump people that really supported Donald Trump, is this just deitizing the person and thinking this person could do no wrong and everything they say must be right. So even if it is counter to what I thought, now I guess maybe I'll change my mind because they're saying XYZ thing. And I think we have to all remember to maintain our independence, to maintain our own ability to think things through, And I get it. It's going to upset people, and we're not going to, when we don't agree, we're going to upset people and they're going to want to turn and call us traitors. But that doesn't matter. You have to always stand your ground, always have integrity with what you believe in. And the point is to find politicians who are going to help promote those ideals.
Yeah.
If they don't.
Yeah, 100%, Kim. And that's the problem too, as well. You know what I'm saying? That a lot of people, we kind of, we put them on pedestals, a lot of these politicians, and no matter what they say, we tend to play team sports and just stick by that person because we like them a lot. And I do see that from a lot of Tulsi people and stuff, but I do see a lot of Tulsi supporters that are still, they watch our shows, they still like us, they still support us because they think that our criticisms are fair. But I want to just lay it out there too, as well, because Tulsi is an interesting, person as well. There was a time when she had said some stuff and when she had kind of was silent on a lot of things. I've always said this when it comes to Tulsi. I sometimes get angrier at Tulsi for what she doesn't say rather than what she does say. You know what I'm saying? And I can tell you right off the bat, her silence in the last Gaza bombing really disturbed me. It really made me mad. Even when she was too busy talking about Kyle Rittenhouse, and I know a lot of people in the States were talking about it, but she was silent on what was going on in Nicaragua with the Rensanar Act, which was pretty much trying to force a type of regime change as well and imposing sanctions on a third world country that will starve people out. And as being the regime change candidate, I didn't think it was fair for her to be silent on those things. So, however, coming to today, there has been some new information, some kind of things that I was watching Tulsi on. I'm like, well, that's some really, really good news. And maybe we should get some people on to talk about it. So how about we dive right into this section, unless you have anything else to say, because I've titled this Tulsi Gabbard, the good, the bad, and everything in between. So I'd like to talk about some of the good stuff right out the gate and whatnot. And I want to set some things straight, because I think that everything in between is going to kind of focus on what I think the majority of people were upset at you about. They were upset at me about, which was the Islamists comment, but we're going to shelve that to the very end. Let's start off with the good, because I want to bring up something here. And you have one of the most nuanced kind of positions when it comes to the WEF, the World Economic Forum. A lot of people were very, very critical of Tulsi Gabbard and the World Economic Forum, that she was a young global leader. I think she was the same class as Dan Crenshaw and Pete Buttigieg. I could be wrong, right?
Yeah.
But just recently, and here's a tweet from our good friend Cleopatra Jones. What's up? So now we can stop with but Tulsi was the WEF global leader stuff now. It's official. They hate her. They are divorced. What a huge compliment to Tulsi. And you can see my friend Chris DeShillis has put up, Tulsi has been removed from the WEF website. Now, before you give your opinions on that, I would just like to say, when it comes to these groups, we are very, very suspicious about what's going on. The reason why I got blocked by a Tulsi supporter is that Tulsi supporter made out a tweet, Tulsi's going at Kamala Harris. I went under the tweet and said, let me know when she's going at Klaus Schwab. And I do think that since Tulsi was a young global leader, and she was also in the Council of Foreign Relations at one point, that she should have to come out and denounce this, especially when a lot of people feel that what's going on in the world today when it comes to United States policy, that they are taking a beat from these other groups above them, like the Council of Foreign Relations and the World Economic Forum. I just want to play a quick clip for you, Kim, because you actually came on our show later that night or the very next day that Tulsi was in the house. And this is when Nico, in our first interview, and I wasn't ready to push back then. I was still kind of a rookie. I was wet behind the ears and whatnot. But this is her answer. And then once we're done listening to Tulsi, this is her answer. You let it rip once we're done. This is her answer to about her involvement in the Council of Foreign Relations.
Office that has been very critical of the corruption within the intelligence community.
Yeah.
Corruption that has led to, especially after this Russiagate situation with, friendships ended, careers disparaged, like relationships have been, and one of the people were telling me that they were broke up with their significant others over things that, the intelligence community perpetuates, and we know that the history of the intelligence community demonstrates they don't have, they're not really the most credible. So we've been getting a lot of questions about the fact that either you used to belong to Council for Relations and you might still belong there. I haven't checked, and they want to know, like, is there a reason? Why are you still part of it if you are, and or do you plan on trying to sway them, because they've been known to work in conjunction with our intelligence communities that you obviously are so critical of. So like, if you could give us a little, insight into that, that'd be dope.
So the committee that I first joined when I was elected to Congress in 2012, was sworn in early 2013, was the Foreign Affairs Committee. The first year I was there, I was on the Homeland Security Committee, and then moved from there to the Armed Services Committee. And as you know, one of the main reasons that I ran for Congress was to try to influence and impact our foreign policy, to not just tweak around the edges, but to bring about this sea change that we need to see to end these wasteful regime change wars and focus on how we're putting the interests of our country at the forefront of the decisions that we're making. So the Council on Foreign Relations, I'm looking to engage with different people who are working in this area. I was basically what they call a term member for the Council on Foreign Relations, which is for people who are under the age of 40, and it lasts for 5 years.
Oh.
And so they have different things that they do to bring people into these conferences, host speakers and things like that. Brought in some speakers to Congress in dealing with North Korea, and through that process heard a very diverse set of views from fellows and different people who are a part of that organization, some of whom share my worldview, many others who do not. So again, I think it's...
So basically the same situation you're in Congress with right now.
Yeah. I mean, look, yeah. It's,
many others.
It's, I think we, like we said earlier, we can't be afraid to have these engagements and conversations. Look, my mission is very clear. My position is very, very clear. And it's not something that wavers regardless of.
So there it is, Kim. She said at the very end, her position is clear. Her position doesn't waver no matter who she's talking to. But a lot of people looked at this as like red flags of sorts. When I was in New Hampshire and we were at an event during the primary, this guy busted in and was screaming, "What about your relationship with the Council of Foreign Relations?" And it was like his gotcha moment. He was removed eventually because he was screaming and acting like an idiot. And me and Nico talked to him outside, like, "Hey, we asked her about that," and she answered. And I, somewhat at that time, said, Dennis Kucinich was part of the CFR, right? You know what I'm saying? Maybe they walked in the door, saw what was going on, and left and said, "No way to this." Give us your opinions about Tulsi's relationship with the WEF and the Council of Foreign Relations, and what you really think it means, and should she have to denounce them at the end of the day?
Well, I think that when you look at these different leadership positions or these boards, I think that young leaders, when they're rising up through politics, and they're kind of like what you were mentioning, you were wet behind the ears when you're sitting there with Tulsi, so you didn't know to push back, but now you know better. I think it's very similar. They're all wet behind the ears. And so they're flattered that they get invited to be a part of these leadership councils and these groups. And they think, wow, this is really cool. This is a great opportunity. So I'll do it. So I think that the invitation leads to most of them saying yes, no matter who they are. And I think when these groups then bring these people in and try to cultivate and shape them and help form them, they inevitably begin to weed out the ones that are just not going to go along, right? I mean, there's just going to be ones that come in, and those ones just absorb it all, and they see the immense opportunity and the connections they can make, and how this group could potentially put them into very powerful positions, ultimately help really guide and shape their political careers. Like you've got Justin Trudeau, who's a member of the World Economic Forum and Global Young Leaders, and look at where he's at today, right? You've got Pete Buttigieg, look at how far he's gone. Tulsi did not make it that far, right? Pete Buttigieg did, Tulsi did not. So I think there is, we have to remember that pretty much anybody and everybody, I mean, had I been presented and offered, hey, join this group, had I not known what I know now, I probably would have said, okay, like I'll try it out, I'll go, right? And I would have joined the groups. And then as you're in those groups and you start to hear certain things and policies and ideas, and you might start to say, I don't know if I really agree with this. And I do think then they kind of separate out. It's a numbers game, I think, for like World Economic Forum young global leaders. They know that they can bring a ton into the fold, and they could probably persuade and indoctrinate and guide. They don't call it indoctrination. Of course, they call it guiding, shaping, right? And keeping people connected to one another so that they don't want to fall out of line from that, because they want to remain in that, the cool kids crowd. And then there's just going to be those that inevitably say, forget this. I don't know if I'm my own thinker. I'll do my own thing. I think Tulsi obviously has an inclination. We've seen this over and over and over again, that her inclination is to reject and be suspicious and to think it through and to be your own independent thinker on things. So it's no surprise to me that Tulsi would be a part of these groups at first, like anybody would be. And then as they go along in them, they might say, I'm not really into all of this after all. And so then they sort of separate, and these groups then divorce themselves of them, and they divorce themselves of one another. And I think we can see an example of that with Pete Buttigieg going as far as he has after only being a mayor of a small town in Indiana, right? Tulsi Gabbard has done way more in her career than Pete Buttigieg. I mean, yes, they both were in the military, but Tulsi was a member of Congress for years, and Pete Buttigieg was a mayor of a small town. So, but look at where Pete Buttigieg is today.
Yeah. Well,
so
is that enough, though, Kim, though? Is that, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to stay right here. Is that enough to say, okay, she would have taken it when she was younger? Now she doesn't play by that same ideology. There's no way, she's not a part of it. Look at it. Her career. Shouldn't she have to denounce them? I mean, I've never heard her go after Klaus Schwab. She talks about the elites. I don't even know if she uses the word globalist enough and whatnot, maybe, whatnot. But, she's the ruling class, the elites, these people, why not go after the World Economic Forum for what it is and call them out?
I actually don't know how much control Klaus Schwab himself has over the World Economic Forum and the ideas. I don't know if he is just also a mouthpiece who kind of gathers people up and gets them together and facilitates the meetings. I don't know if he's anything more than a facilitator. And if you've read his books, it would almost seem like maybe that is just what he is, because his books have no depth whatsoever to them. I mean, the idea is, they're not, this is not, when you read his books in particular and listen to his talks, this is not the mind of a visionary. Yeah. So I'm not sure what position he plays in all of this, but he is not a visionary in this. That's
why
clear.
not call out the World Economic Forum by itself? We can definitely agree that what we saw for the last 2 years, and it seems like the World Economic Forum is calling the shots, not our government. I mean, it almost seems that way sometimes. Why not call out the World Economic Forum? Because she once was a global leader, a young global leader. Why not say, I don't subscribe to that kind of thinking anymore. Those people or whatever, I'm done. I'm out. That's it. And if she would do that, right? If she would just say that, I think so many people would be like, wow, here we go. Because a lot of people were putting this out like this was breaking news, Kim. Like, look, I told you she's not part of those groups anymore. They got her when she was wet behind the ears, but now she's all grown up, and now Tulsi's not playing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think in a position like Tulsi or any of us, we have to sort of pick and choose our battles on when we're going to speak up and how and against who. You could certainly do a lot of things behind the scenes to undermine maybe certain ideologies, but it might not be as wise to publicly state it, because you might be putting yourself just too much in the bullseye. I mean, I don't know how she's already a target for so many. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, I do agree that she should probably speak up. I mean, I know I have against the World Economic Forum plenty. I actually was just in Dallas. I just got back last night from being on Glenn Beck's podcast. He's also big. He's one of the loudest voices against the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset and whatnot. So we were talking about that on his podcast. But so certainly there are people that are doing it, but I don't know, she just speaks up so much against so much other stuff. She's got a target on her back a lot. I don't know what I'm not in that world, so I'm not 100% certain what sort of power they could have over her if they could really, truly just end her career 100%. Yeah. It's like, it's good to speak up until you're going to get yourself assassinated. And then once you're dead, you're not actually, I'm not saying that that's what's happening to her. I'm just saying, I would say metaphorically, she could be assassinated politically. Right. Yeah. And it's only good up to a certain point, but when you're dead, you can't do anything beyond that. So I think there's a risk calculation that people make. Bernie made that a lot with the Democratic Party, but I think it does get to a point where you could say you've gone just way too far. Now you just placate them all the time. And I think that's what Bernie does now with the Democratic Party. For example.
Exactly. Yeah, listen, I agree. I think that's enough for that right there. We can question it all day long. I think it's a good thing that they have removed her. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people were kind of like, I don't want to use the word justified, but like, they were like, listen, this is the reason why we gave a pass. I mean, like Dennis Kucinich was in the Council of Foreign Relations. And once again, if you're telling me that he's part of this whole cabal, because the thing is, I think with Tulsi, she's so smart and whatnot. A lot of people feel that she's a wolf in sheep's clothing, like that she's there to guide people into actually the one party duopoly of sorts. Like now she ran as a Democrat. Now she's going to go run as a Republican, maybe, and kind of like create the one party that, that is talked about. And a lot of people are scared of that,
Right.
But at the end of the day, since this is the good section, I would just like, and if you have something to say, another good about Tulsi that you want to point out right now, the good in Tulsi is still the fact that, it doesn't bother me that she goes on and talks in Fox. The only thing that's bothered me is that she's not talking to any of us now who she used to talk to before. I've said it before. You don't want to come on the Convo Couch, go on Nico. You don't want to go on Nico, go on Kim's show, right? You know what I'm saying?
She won't.
Go on these shows right here. And I think that sometimes that she's avoiding some of the questions we will ask her because we understand her very well. And we understand a lot of the weaknesses because, we followed her pretty intensively. The fact that she doesn't come talk to me bothers us, but I still like the fact that she does talk to the other side. It didn't bother me that she went to talk to CPAC. It doesn't bother me that she talks to Fox News. It's just a lack of talking to us.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't have any problem with her speaking at CPAC or speaking or going on Fox News or any of that. I don't have a single problem with that. I think there's been plenty of instances of CPAC inviting Democrats. She's not the first, I don't think she's really a Democrat anymore, though. I do think she's moving more Republican. And I wouldn't be surprised if she ran on a Republican ticket in the near future. Yeah. But and I don't blame her for that either. I mean, I actually at some point encouraged her, and I was like, I think you should consider it because Democrats aren't nice to you. So why continue hanging around? What I didn't expect, though, was, I do think there's certain ideals that are morphing within the Republican Party that could grow an actual following within the Republican Party. And then there's other aspects to it that I would have, had it been me making a transition towards the Republican side to run on a Republican ticket, I would have ignored certain culture war or rhetoric that goes on with the Republican Party. And I would have focused on the stuff that I knew I could have gotten the base excited about. And I think she kind of went in a little bit of a different direction than what I would have said, hey, push more on this and don't talk so much on that.
Yeah.
But it is very bothersome that she has stopped talking to all of us. And I don't even know if she talks to Jimmy anymore either. I know she will not return my calls or my texts. Yeah. Same with you. That is extremely bothersome. I think it's very similar to when Jimmy would complain all the time. We'd hear him complaining about AOC no longer speaking to him after he was one of the first to give her a platform, right? Same with Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders wouldn't talk to Jimmy. And even we saw this with Bernie, and it was a real strange thing with Crystal and Kyle. They've got their podcast, and Kyle was always one of the biggest proponents of Bernie, right? So then why? I don't know what happened there, and I didn't follow it any further. But when Bernie was on that podcast, he said, "I'll do it, but not with Kyle." There was something, and so he'd only sit down with Crystal, but he wouldn't sit down with Kyle. So something happens along the line, and I don't know what is in the minds of Bernie, AOC, or Tulsi that make them suddenly say, I'm no longer going to speak to my once supporters. But that has happened, and Tulsi's kind of joined them, I guess, in on that.
Well, she wants to avoid certain questions in my mind, unless I'm proven wrong. And this is the good part of Tulsi, so I don't want to get away from it. We could get that in the bad section, which is next, because I want to finish up the good. But I do feel that she's avoiding certain questions. Hold on to the things that she talked about, because I think it's a very important in the next section. It's the same section, but it's the bad part of the section. But the good part, I just want to finish up. And if you have anything else good too as well. Of course, I like her stance on civil liberties and going after big tech. And I love the fact that she was like one of the only candidates out there at one point, and lawmakers that had a good election integrity bill. Her push to remove ballot harvesting, I thought was amazing, even though it was twisted and with the whole Ilhan Omar thing. But the thing about talking to the other people, true story real quick, because I've never really told it on air, is that, if you know Pasta, he's a mama's boy. And me and my mother were not getting along at one point. It was very odd because we were fighting. And it was a lot of politically motivated things. And my mom was a Trump person. I was a Bernie person. I was now a Tulsi person and whatnot. And we got into a little quarrel. And I remember Tulsi telling people, like, you don't go over and you shame people. We don't play that cancel culture stuff. We talk to people who think differently than us. There was I think she was one of the New York delegates for Tulsi. Her name was Eileen. She was in New Hampshire, and she had followed Tulsi's advice, and she sat down and tried to talk to some Trump people. They sat her down. They had amazing dinner. They paid for her food. She couldn't believe the way she connected. And when she told that story on stage before Tulsi had come to speak to us, I actually went outside and called my mother. Like, really, to tell you the truth, because I would always say, well, what am I supposed to do? People are like, oh, your mom's wrong for supporting Trump. Am I supposed to take her out in the backyard and put her down like Old Yeller? Sorry, can't do that. So really, to tell you the truth, and I'm not trying to make this as like this loving, great moment, but it's so true, because it was like you saw this kind of like just polarizing, toxic environment, especially coming from Democrats with the cancel culture. And she was like, no, we're not going to play that. And that's something that another supporter, Chris DeShillis, had talked about with me when we were in Vegas eating. He said, that's the thing I like most about Tulsi, is that we have the ability to do that. And she gave us that strength and power to do that in this environment. And I think that's always been great. You know, she calls it aloha. I don't know what us Italians call it, azalut, but it was just, it's something I really, really liked about Tulsi's mentality, and she's still there. However, she needs to come talk to us. Is there anything good that you want to finish up with Tulsi before we get to the bad?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, what I love about Tulsi is I think she's a genuinely good person. I do. I think she's a genuinely good person. And I've met her family, and they're all genuinely good people. Her husband is a genuinely good person. So there's no way she's faking that. I mean, I think, is a genuinely good person. And I think she does work from and guides herself from what she thinks are moral principles. I might not agree on all of them, but I do think that she's coming from that space. And I think that in that regard, I do find her trustworthy in a lot of cases, in a lot of instances, more so than other politicians who, you know, you could just tell that, I mean, they're nice. Like most everybody you meet is always going to be nice, but being nice and being a good person are two different things. Somebody can be plenty nice, but very selfish. And I don't get that. I don't get that from her the few times that I've met her and the few times that I've been around her family and her husband, who's a wonderful person. So, you know, I as a person, absolutely support her. And she doesn't have anything to worry about, you know, when it comes to coming, talking to me or being on my show or even being on Rising, because I know she's received an invite to be on Rising and maybe she's been a bit hesitant because I'm on it, but from what I understand, but she doesn't have anything to worry about. I mean, because I do think she's a genuinely good person. And even, like I said, if I don't agree on some of the stances or maybe some things that have come out, or maybe I've pointed out some things, because my job is to be unbiased about anybody and everybody. And I always say, look, I can't be anyone's friend really when it comes to this job, because if you try to make a friend with a politician or anyone else, you know, you just got to know that at some point you're going to be in my crosshairs. There's just no way to avoid that. If you do something or say something, then I'm going to call you out on it. I have to be fair in that way. And that's not personal by any, you know, that's not a personal thing. It's just, it is the job. And I think that too many journalists, and we see this in the news media, we see this in the mainstream news media, and how they basically stroke the egos of the politicians that are on their side of the aisle. And they do it, and they're not being honest with the American people. They're not being honest about being journalists or being in the news and giving information. They're not honest about it. And we have to be honest. So I like I said, I think Tulsi is a really good person. And I think she means the things she says. And I think that is one of the biggest benefits of her.
Remember when we went to that kind of Tulsi event in the Hollywood Hills of a libertarian person who threw it and stuff? Abraham came running over to us at the end and said, hey, my two favorite people are here. Let's take a picture. I really felt that genuineness. I really did from them. You know what I'm saying? And me and you and Abraham took a great picture and stuff. And I do feel she's genuine and whatnot. But, you know, I mean, I think a lot of people are so critical of her and they don't realize the waters she has to navigate around. I'm not saying that I'm completely back on board. There are some things that I don't like, and we're about to talk about them right now,
Yeah.
being the bad part. And, but yeah, I mean, I still want to point out that more than anybody in our Congress, Kim, anybody in our Congress, she's way better than any of them. Way better on ideology, on principality, on anything you want to talk about. Tulsi is way better than any member we have in Congress right now, today.
I do
Period.
like Ro Khanna, though, I will say. I think Ro Khanna.
Oh, he's a great one.
Yeah, he's great. He's definitely one of my favorites. But
yeah, you're getting the comedy over here. You're going to be a stand-up.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think that there are some fringe ones and they get smeared all the time. I actually like, and people are probably going to roll over and their eyes are going to roll into the back of their heads. I actually like Matt Gaetz.
Ooh, I thought you were going to say Josh Hawley, because there's some things I like about Josh Hawley until he starts talking about China.
Yeah. Josh Hawley, I agree with him on some things, of course, but there's a lot of things with Josh Hawley I do not agree with. Matt Gaetz, though, I tend to, he definitely is getting the whole smear job going on against him big time. They're trying to delegitimize him. They're trying to minimize him. And he does definitely speak up against the grain. He was with Tulsi on Julian Assange, I believe, and Edward Snowden, going against war stuff. There was a lot there that there was a group of them that were constantly kind of forming together. And I think that they really got I think we're watching a smear job happen.
Hey, look,
Matt.
There were some good things about Trey Gowdy too, as well, before he left as well. I remember Tulsi having to name somebody in a different party that she likes to talk to and gets along with. Trey Gowdy had some good things. Thomas Massey still every once in a while.
Thomas Massey is it? Yeah.
But in the Democratic Party, I mean, we have nobody.
Well,
nobody.
We got Ro Khanna. You don't like Ro Khanna?
I can't stand.
I really like Ro Khanna. Why do you not like him? What's wrong with him?
Because we're not going to go after Ro Khanna's fake BS ass over here. What did he call them? The radical left the other day? And stuff?
Yeah. I mean, he's not. I mean, none of them are.
His teeth. He's part of Silicon Valley's friggin' little baby, whatnot. He's terrible. His wife has made how much money through insider trading? You know what I'm saying? And like he's just all over the place. And he just got embarrassed with his Indian comments and stuff. But I do not like Ro Khanna at all.
All right. Okay.
I don't. And a lot of people will mention.
You'll have to send me the big laundry list as to why. Because I've always, his policy and the stuff that he proposes, I think is, he's always was one of the few that actually would side with Tulsi on most stuff. So
yeah, really, until he called her out and said he was kind of agreeing with Peter Frederick. His name's not Peter. Peter Frederick, when he completely smeared Tulsi as an Islamophobe and anti-Islam person, and Ro Khanna went and shared it and retweeted it. So there's a lot of things I don't like about Ro Khanna.
All right, fair enough.
Any way you look at it, she still would be better than any Congress member whatsoever. She's still the best, and in all the areas that are important to me. Yeah, she can get better on election integrity, and I hate the fact that she went on Megyn Kelly and said that the elections were valid and stuff like that, because you don't have to say they're valid or not valid. You just got to point out the framework and the system and saying how awful it is and stuff. You know what I'm saying? I don't like that, but she's also good when it comes to civil liberties. Her anti-war stance, I'm about 85% of the way there. I don't like the fact that she's, kind of like is up to drone warfare. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves why we would want to be droning these countries anyways. So, I mean, there's a lot of bad there too, as well as when it comes to good. The bad. Do you want to start off the bad, or do you want to start off with my bad? Because my bad really pissed me off. So
I'll let you go then. You're okay.
Let's
go. The emotion on it.
You better believe it and stuff. Yeah. So, as you know, I'm very happy that Tulsi has gotten to a better place on COVID, right? Like, with the narrative and whatnot. Yeah. She was one of the co-sponsors of HR 666, and that was a bill that allowed military personnel to come in and separate families in the event of a virus. Like, she was really out of the gate. She had that kind of like, I kind of compared it to Dustin Hoffman in Outbreak. Like, we got to stop this. We got to save this. The military in her was like, let's go. You know what I'm saying? But she has since found Jesus on this episode. And she's mentioned a lot of things about monoclonal antibodies and the fact that we've been lied to about a lot of things when it comes to COVID. But this is something that just blew my friggin' mind. Here is Tulsi Gabbard, and she is promoting and pushing the Pfizer drug Paxlovid.
Hey, everybody. You may have seen in the news recently that there was a new drug that was approved to treat COVID. It's a life-saving therapeutic called Paxlovid, made by Pfizer, and it has the potential to save thousands of people's lives. Unfortunately, there is an extremely limited amount of this drug available to people, and yet the White House refuses to invoke the Defense Production Act to make sure that it is mass-produced and available to all Americans right now. Not in 3 months, not in 6 months, but right now. And the only conclusion that I can draw from this is they either don't care or they're completely inept. This is the same thing that we're seeing all over again, just like we saw with the testing debacle. But it is an incredible tragedy because so many people are suffering and dying simply because our leaders and bureaucrats continue to fail them. They continue to fail the American people. This is America, and a country as rich as ours should be able to provide every single American with the tools, the therapeutics that we need to reduce suffering and save lives. Anything short of that is inexcusable. Now, Pfizer's Paxlovid, monoclonal antibody treatments like Sotrovimab and N95 masks, all of these should be widely available to every American. But the reality is that they are not. The blood of those who are suffering and dying is on the hands of our leaders.
That really burnt my ass. I'm just going to say it like that. Don't care if we're supposed to be doing the news. Don't care if we're supposed to be professional here. That really got me like just in a craziness. Like, you're going to sit out there and you're going to push a drug. First of all, it's not even a drug that is known to properly work. You know, if you've done your homework on that, you'll see there was a lot of problems with Paxlovid. And the thing that also bothered me is that she didn't talk about another drug that begins with the letter I. And supposedly her connections to India and all Modi and all this stuff. Well, why didn't you just go look what happened in many regions in India where they used that I drug and they had amazing results? But to turn around and push a pharmaceutical drug like Paxlovid, it's like, to me, I don't know who she's winking to or who she's trying to say what's like she's trying to say, hey, big pharma, I got you when I run. Don't come after me. I'm going to push your drug, Paxlovid. That's under emergency use authorization as is, which means they had to push it through without its clinical trials and all that bullshit because of the state we're in. I did speak to Dr. Ryan Cole at the Defeat the Mandates in DC about Paxlovid. Do you want to say anything before we run this quick 2-minute clips on what he says about Paxlovid? Because I also do indicate that I kind of implicated Tulsi in the comment. Do you want to hear that first, or would you like to make a comment?
Let's hear that first.
All right. Well, I've been critical of a certain ex-politician, ex-congresswoman for pushing Paxlovid. I don't know why we just don't push ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, like you said, the iodine solution. What are your thoughts and what have you heard about Paxlovid? Because from what I understand, there are some issues with it, and it is under emergency use authorization.
It's recycled from the dumpster heap of history. It's an old drug. And in order to make it work, you have to combine it with ritonavir, which is an HIV drug, which has a black box warning for liver damage and failure, amongst other organ failures. It is a dangerous drug, and we know it. It's a one-trick pony, so when the virus replicates, it makes this long polyprotein, and you need a little scissor to clip it, this little enzyme, a protease. It blocks that scissor.
Yes.
Guess what else blocks that scissor for a whole lot cheaper and a whole lot safer?
What's that?
Ivermectin.
There you go.
CL3, the CL3 region, CL3 protease inhibitor, ivermectin, as effective, if not more effective than this, with none of the side effects you see from this black box warning drug that Pfizer's pushing out.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's abject silliness to say, we're...
So,
Well,
hydroxychloroquine, what do you think?
Listen, this is again, I think that this is one of those tough ones where anyone who promotes, ivermectin or anything like that is immediately smeared And it's like, who else is standing in that besides Joe Rogan, who's like almost too big to fail, although that's not true. But, at that point, I mean, who else can really say anything, especially in the political space? Like, who has spoken up? I mean, has Rand Paul even spoken up and said, "Oh, why aren't we doing this?" I mean, I don't feel like any of them are actually pointing out any of
Ron
these.
Johnson,
Ron
Senator
Johnson,
Ron
okay.
Johnson,
He's the only one
having
right?
hearings
Right.
talking about it, having his hearing taken down off YouTube as soon as it's done. You know what I'm saying? And I get what you're
Right.
getting at, Kim, but to me, I'm sorry, this is lives. This is, what I'm saying, this is something serious over here. And I wanted her to have the strength and stand up. She's already talking about Regeneron. And
I mean, she might also not
antibodies.
know about it, really. I mean, a lot of people they haven't done the research. They're not going to ivanmeta.com. They're not looking and seeing, the various different, all they know is that there are certain clinical trials, and the clinical trials have been piss poor, as far as how they're run, on really, unfortunately, on both sides, mainly because there's no funding in doing a really good clinical trial. Our government should be doing it. They're not.
Mhm.
So
Also, they're tanking those trials on purpose.
right. They tank the ones on purpose. And then the other ones that are actually trying to find out, they're not giving them the money to do an adequate large scale clinical trial. So, there's a lot up against it. And I don't know if I can really blame anybody, honestly, who doesn't really know about it. If they know about it. So what I get mad about is if she were to come out and say, "Oh, that's just horse medicine," then I'd be pissed like you are. That would burn my butt. Okay. But just come out and say, "Hey, there's this drug on the market. Why are they not giving this to us? What is going on?" Like, I can't really fault her for that. I don't find an issue with it personally.
I do. That's the one that really bothers me the most. Like I said, like, she's smart. We all know how smart Tulsi is.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, there's not a lot of clinical trials, whatnot, but we have so much data, right, from doctors who have actually treated patients with the eye drug. So we know the results, and Tulsi is smart enough to know that. So
it's still not, it's just still, I just don't think a lot of people do. And if they're not looking into it, all I know is I'm not going to fault people for not knowing about it. I'm just going to fault people for calling it horse dewormer and demonizing it.
Well, the FDA has a picture of a veterinarian petting a horse in the front now.
Exactly.
They're on this big attack on the eye drug. We will agree to disagree, but give me what the bad is about Tulsi. And the last section will be right after that, so we can get you out of here in 9 minutes. Is the reasons why people are upset at us from the Islamist comment. But do you have something other than that is the bad about Tulsi you want to point out?
Well, I mean, there's the first one is like bad, I would say, because there's some stuff that I'm like, I don't know, some of her stances that have kind of moved her more to the right, that I just thought, do we really need to be discussing that or caring about that right now? But one of the things that I have questions about, I should say, I would like to talk to her about her locals community. I have a moral issue with politicians making a bunch of money off of being a politician. I have an issue with it. I criticized every politician for it, and she's not going to be any different on that front. So my question is, how is it that she's, from my calculations, probably bringing in over $100,000 a month from supporters who supported her as a politician and are no longer supporting her, obviously, as a politician, because she's not a politician, but they've almost been, they're paying a monthly fee into a community. And I'm on locals community too, but I create content. I do media, right? That's different. But to be a politician and to then convert your monthly donation base into a like Patreon style situation where you're now no longer needing all of that money. She doesn't need to account for it. It's not like running a campaign where you have to show every dollar and where it went and where it came from. This is just people giving her money, and she's getting rich off of this. So I have questions about that. Like, what is she providing to these people in order to? Is she just making money off of being famous? Because that's what it looks like to me. Or is she providing something that many people who are in locals, most of us in locals are creators, Is she a creator? Is she morphed into a creator? I have questions about this. If she wants to be a creator and launch a show or a product or something, okay,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Let me give you my take on that, because I disagree a little bit, right? Like, I have no problem with Tulsi making money off of Tulsi. Like, in other words, I have an issue. It's not just how you make the money, but who gives you the money. If it's the military industrial complexes giving you the money, if it's big pharma that's giving you the money, if it's all these evil entities, Jeff Bezos giving you money, George Soros giving you money, if they're giving you money, I have an issue, because then they're trying to dictate what you can and cannot say. Tulsi making money off of being Tulsi for who she was, it doesn't bother me personally. It really doesn't. I'm not mad at you for your criticism. I can see that. It's just something that I don't see that is really bad. We have to all pay bills. We live in this system. It's
$1 million a year, Pasta. That is not.
If the military industrial complex gives her money, I got problems. If, like I said, if it's a bunch of people who like Tulsi and they can afford to give money to Tulsi because they believe that they want her to continue with her message and her word, I'm okay with that. I really am.
But how much money of that can she even use towards a campaign? There's a personal limit, isn't there, for how much personally you could put towards a campaign?
Yeah.
So none of that money could really go to that.
We can also look how she spends the money too, though. We can see, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
we don't know how she's going to spend that money, right? Maybe she got kind of invest in like companies that clean the ocean and stuff, like legit companies, or do something.
No, I'm sorry. I just have an enormous problem with politicians getting rich off of being politicians. It's not okay. It's immoral. And what it does is it encourages people to go run for office, win seats in office so that they could turn around and make $1 million and become the next Nancy Pelosi. It's bullshit. I do not agree with it. It's totally wrong. It's immoral. And for somebody standing up saying that she's being moral and then turn around and do something like that, to me is immoral. I have a problem with it. And she needs to answer to that in order for me to ever support her again. I don't like it when politicians do it. If they're going to write a book like Bernie Sanders, okay, I can I can forgive that a bit. Like, you wrote a book, you sold books. Like, what are you going to do? Right. But again, it's just using the fame and turning it around and making a bunch of money. And a lot of these people, they don't realize that they've, in their minds, I think they probably know that they're no longer giving to her campaign, but I don't know if they really subconsciously fully understand that. Like, they still support her for what, like, they almost think it's a proxy campaign. I don't know, but I just totally have a problem with becoming a millionaire off of being a politician. I think it's immoral. These are public servants. And these public servants need to not be making millions of dollars, because now we have an oligarchy essentially on our hands.
I respect that opinion. I know a lot of people will probably, I haven't looked at the chat. She gave her money in her campaign back to the people when she ended her campaign, Kim. I know they're going to be saying that to kind of counteract what's going on. That's a valid criticism. And, like say, even though I disagree, there's a piece of me that does agree. But yes, I respect that opinion. Let's get to this last one, because I know you got to get out of here. And this is the big one, because this is the one where a lot of people said, Kim Iversen, persona non grata, Convo couch, we're done with you. Get out. And this is when it all started, right? This is the comment we saw. And this was kind of the pivot. I think we said, like, listen, there's a Tulsi pivot going on. She has made that pivot to go concentrate on the Fox crowd. And this is what she said on Tucker. Let's play this clip real quick, and I'll let you get at it.
All right.
Tucker Carlson, tonight we're trying to find things to be happy about, and actually, if you look hard enough, there are a lot of them. One of the best things about, say, a Supreme Court confirmation hearing is that you get to see the U.S. Senate in action. And this is new. If you're like most people, the Senate has 100 members, or 2 from every state, and you know that they're somehow important. They're in the Constitution. So they wear dark suits and red ties to work. They talk about laws. Every summer they fly to foreign countries and act like they're president. Some of them you may even know by name, the famous ones like Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, obviously the publicity addicts like Lindsey Graham, and of course the ones you see on your own ballot every 6 years. So that's what you know. But do you really know these people? Who are they, really? What are they like? Well, unless you happen to live next door to one, or you watch an inordinate amount of C-SPAN, it's hard to know what they're like. And that's why confirmation hearings are so great. You get to see U.S. senators in their natural habitat. Turns out there are confirmation hearings underway right now. You may have heard about them, for a Biden appointee called Ketanji Jackson. Now, Jackson is a world-renowned legal genius who, for reasons that are still not clear, cannot determine what a woman is. We told you about her last night. But so far, the star of these hearings has not been Ketanji Jackson. It's been a junior senator from New Jersey called Cory Booker. Now, like Ketanji Jackson, Cory Booker is also a world-famous legal scholar, hence his seat on the Judiciary Committee. Booker attended not only Stanford and Yale Law School, but then went all the way to Oxford University in England on the coveted Rhodes Scholarship. He has quite a resume. If academic credentials still had any connection to ability or achievement, Cory Booker would be a very impressive person. But in his case, we're going to have to grade on a curve because Cory Booker has come a long way. Cory Booker is from a world you have never been to. He's from a hard, unforgiving world of crime, decay, and raw urban authenticity. Cory Booker is from the streets of Newark. He once described his world in an interview, quote, "I still remember my first month on the street," he said. "I walked up to this charismatic black guy my age called T-Bone, who was one of the drug lords. I said, 'Yo, man.'"
No. I gave you the Tulsi Gabbard. That's the next video that played after the first video. Try to go back to it, refresh it real quick. Did you refresh the page? Try it. Is Tulsi Gabbard in it? No, that's not the page. How come I got it on mine? All right. Here we go. Sorry, everybody. That was the wrong video. We're going right now.
She's a former member of Congress from Hawaii. She served in Iraq as a member of the Hawaii Army National Guard. She's still serving the country in the military. She joins us tonight. Congresswoman, thanks so much for coming on. So you get to lie. I mean, this will not shock you because you've seen it so much, but you get to lie about the loss of human life. You get caught and nothing happens to you? What kind of system is that?
I mean, this kind of accountability is critical. I want to point out first that anytime there are civilian casualties in war, it is tragic and terrible. Yeah. War is a terrible thing, and I think it's important for the American people to understand that Islamist jihadists are continuing to wage war against us. And the Islamist ideology, not the same as the religion of Islam, but this Islamist ideology, which is a political ideology that inspired the terrorist attacks on our country on 9/11, is the greatest threat that we're facing right now in this country and the world. It is the foundation of governance of so-called Islamic countries like Turkey and Iran and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. And it's what's behind the discriminatory policies that they have in these countries against Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, atheists, and others. So as long as these Islamist jihadists are waging war against us, we have to work to defeat them militarily and ideologically. And militarily, we have two choices in how we do that. Number one, we can continue to invade and occupy and nation-build in countries around the world, just as we did in Afghanistan, at great cost. Number two, we can take a targeted approach using airstrikes, using our special forces to go in and go after these terrorist cells. The reality is that the cost to the American people, the cost to our troops, the cost to civilians will be far less if we take this very targeted approach to go after these jihadist terrorist cells than if we continue making the very same mistakes that we saw in Afghanistan and other parts of the world of invasion, occupation, and nation building.
All right.
Yeah.
Kim, you want to get at that because there's so many things to dissect there really quick, but I just want to get your opinion of why you were critical. And let me just reiterate that a lot of people thought that you and me and people who were critical of this particular situation were saying that we were accusing Tulsi of being Islamophobic. You want to tackle this situation and tell us why you were upset, if that's true?
Yeah. I mean, look, like one of the main reasons why I supported Tulsi Gabbard was because she was against the meddling and regime change and just the senseless wars that we've been in. And this clip, basically she's saying that she went over to Africa to engage in warfare against these Islamists that she says are there targeting our country. For one, I don't feel a single threat coming from Africa towards us. Even if there's a bunch of Islamists running around in Africa, and they're trying to convert people towards radical Islam or whatever you want. I'm not feeling a big threat over here. So I think it is counter to the very thing that she was campaigning on, which was that we're making ourselves less safe by going over and bombing and targeting people, and that we're creating enemies. And then they're rising. All it's doing when you do that is it causes people in those communities to hate Americans even more. And then eventually, because they're being bombed by Americans and their communities are being bombed. And then they eventually rise up and they do form and they coalesce and they say, let's get them, right? So it doesn't make us any more safe to be doing this. It actually makes us less safe. And that was the very thing that I thought I was supporting her about. But it turns out, maybe there was a bit of a nuance there that I didn't realize that maybe she had. I don't know if she changed or if I just didn't recognize that nuance, that she was like, oh no, I'm cool with that part, just kind of this stealth special operation droning. I'm just not cool with the actual like coups, color revolutions, and ousting of governments. Like that's what I'm against. So I'm not sure if I just didn't hear her or if she changed.
No, she pivoted. She did, because you hit it on the nose, Kim. The number one thing about Tulsi was taking accountability of what the empire is doing. That was the whole thing. Even Donald Rumsfeld said at one point, hey, maybe we're creating more terrorists than we're killing by going over there and stuff. Yeah. And that's something I thought Tulsi was always on board with. Now, I do want to point out that this is kind of similar to when she got the criticism about when Obama said the moderate rebels, which we knew damn well they were not moderate rebels. Right. I like to say that Al-Qaeda, ISIS, the Mujahideen, who he supported a long time ago, they're not the Boy Scouts, okay? By any means, they are radical Islamist jihadists that are funded so high up the gills by the United States empire. And that's something that she messed up on. Yes, they are important. And I don't know how we're going to root them out. I think with what's going on right now in the Ukraine, the way we're supporting this fundamentalism of white ISIS is going to be a problem, Kim. Once this is over, they're going to spread throughout Europe and whatnot, because they always do. So that is something that is critical. But to say it's the number one problem, like you said, you're not fearing these people coming over and killing us. And it seemed like it was like a fear-mongering thing to kind of like remind people of 9/11 and stuff. Like, this is the greatest threat. We have to go over there. And then your solutions for cleaning it up, you didn't name the number one solution. The number one solution to get rid of these groups is to stop funding them. Stop giving them money. Stop giving them arms. And that's what we're doing right now in Ukraine. So,
and what we could be doing if we wanted to really root out this like radical ideology really anywhere in the world is when you make the population around them prosperous. They don't have any reason to join these radical groups.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's economics. You're damn right. If you stop bombing the country, you let them build, you let them earn their own economics, then you'll have a lot less problems. That was in the movie Syriana, right? All these kids, they have nowhere to go, whatnot. They turn to radicalism because now they're kind of whisked over there because they're suffering and they're poor.
Right. And we're seeing this now even in Afghanistan. We're not releasing the funds back into Afghanistan, forcing them to just go into, it's worse there now than it was during the war. And we're allowing it to be another breeding ground for extremism. They will have no choice but to become even more radical than even the Taliban, because they're looking for a savior out of their very desperate situation. So if we want to combat extremism, we have to allow people to become prosperous. And that really does bring them out. They don't have a reason to join it. They're happy. They're participating in society. So that's what my big issue with her and that sudden, and I think it even took Tucker by surprise. I mean, he sits there and he's like, okay, I thought I brought you on here to basically say war bad. Afghanistan, this was a disaster. Biden administration screwed up, and instead she's like, we got to defeat these Islamists in Africa. It was just very bizarre.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people say that, well, she went to war in Iraq and her number one enemy, was the Sunni extremist of sorts. And that's why she said that, Donald Trump was Saudi's bitch and all that goes back to that. And they kind of okayed it because they understood what she was talking about. But no, this is a pivot towards
same with George W. Bush. Hello, everybody, wake up. George W. Bush. That was his exact reason too. Oh, they hurt my daddy.
We got to kill them over there before they kill us over here. Yeah.
I mean,
they can try to kill my dad.
Right. So he's got a personal, he experienced it. And so therefore, he's got a justified reason for it. No, it's not justified.
Well, you see all these people right now that will cry for Ukraine, put the Ukraine flag in their bio. Some of the conservatives that are still aboard with this whole thing, and you see it through the Mitt Romneys, the Lindsey Grahams, the Mitch McConnell types and stuff like that. You don't see those same people that kind of follow that kind of ideology crying for people in Yemen and Syria and whatnot. And that's why I thought this comment was really, really just taken out of whack. And I thought it was a pivot and somewhat of a pander towards that crowd that was okay with Iraq being invaded because it was Saddam Hussein, you know what I'm saying? And I believe it had a lot to do with Muslim ideology, and people were okay because it was a bunch of brown people in the Middle East. And I'm not cool with that. And I thought those comments there could be twisted, and they will be twisted. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I wasn't a fan of that comment. However, I do want to say this for the record. I don't think she's an Islamophobe for saying this. I just think she was wrong, and she was kind of pandering to a certain new crowd.
Yeah, and there's, I think, a possibility of that for sure. Although, again, it's odd to then go on Tucker, which is kind of part of that new crowd, and to say those things when Tucker would be and has been one of her biggest allies as well. So, yeah, I don't think that targeting or discussing, Wahhabist, Salafist ideology makes you an Islamophobe at all. I don't think that that's Islamophobic. Yeah. So I don't consider it that. I could see where people would think so, but that's because people are naive and they don't realize that there are like 100 different forms of Islam. It's like saying that, the Westboro Baptists are the same as Catholics or something. It's not understanding that there's various forms of Christianity, just like there's various forms of Islam. And there are some very dangerous radical forms that, but the vast majority of people obviously who are Muslim are not. Even the vast majority of those who believe in the more radical version of it, they're not even dangerous and violent people.
Kim, you're amazing. Oz, please put up slide 34 real quick. We're going to get you out of here, Kim. By the way, just closing out, I think that what you just said right there, Tulsi knows too. And knowing that you can't use that kind of terminology, knowing that will be twisted and taken out of hand. However, I'm not going to verbally coddle the woke anymore. Definitions mean definitions. And she did say Islamist, and I know what she was talking about when you just go look at the definition, but she is not an Islamophobe. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
Defeat the mandates coast to coast. I'm sorry I stepped on your word. You want to say anything about this on April 10th as we get you out?
No, you're going to be there, right? You're going to be emceeing this thing. Yeah. I'm so glad that you're going to be doing it. You're the best MC. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be speaking. I'm going to give a little chit chat while there. And
I got my fingers crossed that I get to introduce you. Let me introduce Kim Iversen.
I'm sure I'll make sure. I'll be like, Craig's got it. Pasta's got to do it. Pasta's got to do it. I think, a lot of people are wondering why we're still doing this defeat the mandates. A lot of people are saying, but it's over. We moved on. Now we're talking about Ukraine. No, you still, if you are not an American citizen, you cannot get into this country without being vaccinated. You cannot, here in Los Angeles, we still have mandates for going to eat at restaurants and going to movie theaters. The mandates are still in effect for children who are going to school. The mandates are still in effect for college kids. They have to get boosted. The mandates are still very much with us. Companies are still mandating that their employees get the vaccine in order to show up to work. It's ridiculous. I mean, we just had, who was it that my fiance was telling me? I want to say it's like the court system here in LA said, you can't come in, you can't work unless you're vaccinated. With a vaccine that was made for what the alpha or the beta strain. We are well beyond that.
The original strain.
Right. We know now that the vaccines are not stopping the spread even a little bit. They do not stop the spread. So if you're going to take it, it's for yourself because you feel like you're a high risk person. You want to feel like it's whatever your personal reason for doing it. I'm totally supportive of that. That's fine. I'm super pro-choice. That's your choice. But there are still a lot of mandates, and people need to understand that we are not out of this and that they will use this as a template for doing it to us again. So we do still need to defeat the mandates.
I agree. Also, the medical industry, you can't work in a lot of places, not all, but a lot. You can't work in if you don't have the boop boop. I don't know if you know this, Kim, getting out of here. I'm a newspaper guy now that I have a morning show and I get up. I like
you actually touch the newspaper and you get ink on your hands?
I got it right here. I got it right here. And I like to use it every single show I got. And in this newspaper, the main section, which is usually the foreign policy of the world section for the Las Vegas Journal Review, they call it the RJ. It seems like they just take a lot of articles from the Associated Press, and by judging from everything they're talking about the new cases in China, the new deaths in China, the new cases in the United States, the lockdown of Samoa, and also the pushback against the I word, the I drug. I can tell you that, we have to be on guard. This defeat the mandates is really important because not only do we have to talk about what has happened, but the national emergency is not over. It's been extended by Biden. The public health emergency, which distributes the money for all the protocols when it comes to the drugs, is not ended, and it's been extended. So we have to talk about this because I believe they can easily bring it back because they never got rid of it. They only suspended it, and they can put us back inside the houses again if we don't speak up.
Yep, that's exactly right. So
Kim Iversen, The Hill. She didn't sell out in my mind. She's been awesome.
let me also, because I see some of the comments are like, she's with big corporate
Please
media.
address it.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, just so you guys know, I am still independent. I am not. I do not work for the corporation. I am an independent person. So I do the show on a. I'm like they contract with me to be there. So I am not employed. They do not tell me what to say. That is the nature of the relationship. And in the future going forward, if I do move to a more full-time, so if you see me doing a more full-time, being there on a more full-time basis, because right now I only join Rising for like a couple segments a day and you see my radar and stuff, that will still be an independent situation. So there's no discussion of me going and working for a corporation, being an employee and being beholden to a corporation at all. So I just want to clarify that I am still independent. I may license myself out to a corporation to allow them to use my content essentially, but that's the extent of it.
That's right. And you know what? If you want to leave, you need a spot over here. I'll talk to Steve. We got a warm spot for you here in Vegas in the morning show. I'd love to have Kim Iversen and JF O'Donnell, JFOD, come join the morning show and just blow it up and have a great time. Kim, you're amazing.
Thank you.
I love you. Get on out of here and give my love to the fams out there and stuff. You have a great day.
Thank you.
Kim Iversen, ladies and gentlemen. Woo, that was fun. You ready, Oz? You're facing the air. There you go. Oz, I love your hat. Love you, Kim. Thank you so much.
Thank
Guys,
you.
I'm going to read, and she's the best. I'm going to read some Super Rays, and then I'm going to get on over to the Rockfin only. Ma'am, there was some long ass comments over here. Thank you guys for joining on in. The last section after I read these Super Rays is going to be on Rockfin because we're going to talk about the I word. It's not going to be a long section, but I'm going to talk about a few things that I think are important, kind of alluding to the fact that they can bring back this whole situation with the protocols and do whatever, mask us back up and yada, yada, yada. So that's something we have to talk about. Trey Wright says, happy Friday, Blue-Eyed P, overalls Oz, and gorgeous Kim. Thank you so much, Trey Wright. We love you. Aram says the Convo Couch rocks. Always nice to see Kim Iversen, and credit to Kim for getting out and into the thick of it. And in solidarity with the best on the left, the principled left. Thank you, Convo Couch, for doing that you so do dutifully. Well done, and keep it going. That is our good friend Aram. Here's Roger Meadows. Screw these politicians. The feds convinced me they ain't going to do feces. Wow. Let's get our policies done in states via ballot initiatives. We got the power. There's absolutely no reason why only me and Washington are the only states running a BI for state Medicare for all. Join Sabby's, is that a UBI panel tomorrow? Let's abolish all political parties. Progressive Ethan Osborne running against Massey, not a GOP Dem or third party, but affiliated indie. I hope she has a great panel tomorrow. I don't know who's on that panel, but I hope Sabby Sabs has a great show. And there's a lot to say about this. There's a lot to say about ballot initiatives. There's a lot to say about independent parties running, about abolishing parties and whatnot. But here's the thing I have to tell you when it comes across the board. A lot of people, they say a lot of these things that are on the surface. If you don't understand the whole election process and framework, then you're not going to change anything. If you keep putting your nose into a system that needs a lot of work and a lot of help, you're just going to keep coming up with the same results. So you got to understand that stuff. You also have to understand ballot access. How does a party or a person get on the ballot in certain states and certain counties. Some states are ridiculous that you have a better chance of meeting Jesus at this very table right here in person, not upstairs, than you do of getting on that ballot. It's ridiculous. Some states are easy. This is something that we tried to approach MPP about back in the days, whatnot, about, hey, man, do you have any election integrity specialist in your group? And she's like, oh, that's good. Maybe we should get that. And I'm like sitting there talking to you. Yeah, like I'm one of them. I know some people who know this stuff. You didn't reach out to those people, and that's important. If you want to get ballot access for a party or an individual, you got to know how to do it. You got to know where. You got to be strategic about it, right, Oz? Yeah, he says yes. Keep left. Thank you so much. Kim, Pasta, hello. Send my regards to Fee. I was thinking that we needed to modify what we, the populace left, call the oligarchs. Oligarchy means rule a small number, which is true, but plutocracy means rule by the wealthy, or kleptocracy, which means rule by thieves. Seems like more accurate way of identifying them. Just an observation. Keep left. We like to call them the predator class because that's what they are. And Hamza Mir in town over here. We love you, Hamza. Thank you so much for supporting today. Thank you for the Super Rage contribution. It's always appreciated on the couch. That was Kim Iversen joining us for the good, the bad, and everything in between about Tulsi Gabbard. I thought it was an amazing conversation. We had over 500 people watching on YouTube. Now, if you're on the YouTube, do us a favor. Jilly Love, Lucky Burrito, Shan Damasta, all you beautiful people hanging out in the YouTube, copy the link and put it from the Rockfin and put it in there, because we are going to be leaving YouTube, because unfortunately, if we talk about the things we want to talk about, there's a good chance we can get a strike. We got to get taken down. I have to always check myself on what I'm saying when I'm on YouTube, because it's just ridiculous right now. Kim with The Hill last week, they showed a small clip of Trump saying something about the election, and they literally took them down. They had to appeal it. They got the appeal reversed. Heartlands Media talked about that stuff about the election. They took it down. They got it reversed. So, there are certain subjects that are too taboo to talk about, and we're going to talk. It's going to be a brief one. It's not going to be too brief. We're going to talk a little bit about it, but go over to Rockfin. We are leaving YouTube, my friends, in 5, in 4, in 3, in 2, in 1. We love you, Oz.